Okay, so welcome to another episode of Learning for Truth and Love. Today I'm truly excited. We do have several guests talking about hair. Let's talk about hair today. We have Dr. Lavender, Dr. Likely, and Dr. Smith joining us. We are all college professors and researchers. And, even though we're not sitting there necessarily just researching hair, it's something that is very important and personal to us. So I want to start by talking about why I invited you all here today. We realize over the years that hair has become really important, especially when it comes to the education of our children. Not only do we see it in the news and media, but we're positioned in this unusual way where, unlike most cultures, almost every culture believes or seems to believe that they have a say in what our hair looks like and how we do our hair and what it should be. And so this is why I thought this conversation was so important. And not only that, it influences our identity journey. That affects our education as well. But I want to start here by just, you know, highlighting something a song, I should say, that means the world to me when I think about it, because I think about Whitney Houston's song, "Learning to Love Yourself is the Greatest Love of All." And those words, for many of us as Black women, and even as Black people, resonates a lot, right? Because of how we're positioned. It's almost like loving yourself becomes a challenge. So I want to welcome you all and, just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and a little bit about you, who you are, your hair journey, and we'll go from there.
Hi, everybody. I am Dr. Rasheda Likely, an assistant professor of science education. I am at Kennesaw State, which is about 30 miles north and west of Atlanta. Hair things. I'm a hair girl. I have a skin model. I live with one. I worked on a curriculum called Lotions and Potions, Science Through Hair Care, highlight DIY product making alongside science and engineering practices. So I literally have a skin model for that, but I take it home because we need it for today. So yeah, I'm excited to talk to y'all about all the hair things.
Awesome.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. TaVshea Smith. I am assistant professor of early childhood education at North Carolina Central University in Durham, North Carolina, not too far from Raleigh. Always got to make sure we got to make that separation, Raleigh and Durham, because people like to put them together, Raleigh, Durham. But anyway, my hair journey has been one of ups and downs. I remember specifically in 5th grade, my mom put a perm in my hair because she said it was at that moment. And so I remember that. And that lasted me all the way up to college, maybe. And then maybe when I graduated from college, I went to college in Raleigh. And I started to transition out of my perm. And it's been lovely ever since. I always think sometimes what would have happened if I would have never gotten one, what would have happened and what that journey would have looked like. But I think, as we all know, we probably have had so many ups and downs with our hair journey. We go through the hair journey that we need to go through. I will say in the classes that I teach, I talk a lot about representation matters, especially in the early childhood sphere, infants and toddlers, pre-K, kindergarten, and setting that firm foundation. So I'm interested in this conversation and learning from you all today as well.
Awesome.
Hello, I'm Dr. Heather Lavender. I'm an assistant professor at Syracuse University in the heart of Syracuse, New York. I've been here for 7 months, moved from Athens, Georgia, so not too far from you, Dr. Likely. My journey has been a little similar to you, Dr. Smith. I recall some point in time early where my mom or a family member, even myself, were like, "Oh, please let me have please let me have a relaxer," and all, because it was a case of this is unmanageable, and at some point in time before having kids, I actually said, I don't want a relaxer and be pregnant. Or I even thought, if I have girls, I don't want to put a relaxer in their hair. I want them to love their hair. And so when my spouse and I, began the conversation of, we should start trying to have a baby. And I thought, well, I'm going to transition out of this relaxer because I don't want to be a hypocrite to my daughters. I did not have any daughters. I ended up having 2 boys, but nonetheless, I never wanted that image, for them. And so I transitioned out of my my relaxer into my natural hair. But however, I still continue with braiding my hair or adding hair in some form or fashion. And I even, I guess we can get into some of that and all. But I work a lot with young girls, and I do summer camps in terms of STEM with young girls. And listening to you, Dr. Likely, I thought, this is a person that I want to, you've said something that may be helpful for the young girls that I interact with during my summer STEM camps. But in those summer STEM camps, this subject has always come up.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Dr. Quinlan, I realized I didn't answer the question. I just was.
That's okay.
My hair journey does not include a perm. I always wanted one. My sister got to have one, but we have different hair textures. I was the kid that nobody wanted to do their hair because I had the big twists and big plaits, and they're like, I'm not touching it. So it's been a lot of figuring it out on my own. So yeah, my journey has been experimenting, losing hair, drying my hair out with the wrong products, and then finding something that works.
Wow. And, my journey has been very similar. I guess it's a blend. What's interesting is I've grown up with my hair natural and, not doing anything. I more started exploring like during and after college. But one of the things that struck me recently that made me completely stop also, not just, having my child and, realizing that I was sending the wrong message to him one day when I decided I was going to blow my hair out straight. And then he looked at me and the way he complimented me, I found it disturbing because it almost sent a message that, in order to look beautiful, I had to blow my hair out. But I wanted to say that one of the things that really made me stop was when I started exploring this, I looked at pictures of women who used to straighten their hair and then they went natural and had it curly. And I was so struck by how much more beautiful they looked with their natural curly hair than either, the fake hair they had or the straight hair. It's almost as if the curls complemented their face, their eyes, everything so nicely. I was like, wow, I think they look so beautiful, then maybe I must, even if I don't believe it right now. So let me just try this journey. And I do have to say it was the part of this journey, what really had to do with me self-defining and my own self-concept, learning to love myself over time, even in moments when I was, transitioning from the fact that these products had broken my hair up so much, and it dried it up so much. I was like, I'm going to be patient and I'm going to I gave myself a timeline, I'm allowed to, whatever years to see. And I'm happy I did just really go back to, being natural again. But, it made me wonder, so why do we, and again, for the audience, when we use the word perm, we mean straighten, right? When some people use the word perm, they mean curling. We mean straighten. Why do we use straighteners? Why do we use, relaxers and things to braid our hair with? Just hopefully as a teaser question, you could take this wherever you want.
I think for me, it's the misconception of I have to arrive in a space of I can be accepted. Plenty of times from friends and former colleagues, when they go to certain spaces, conferences, or a new job, I've had one person tell me, I'm going to straighten my hair. And I said, hey, your hair looks great. What's wrong? Well, I want to make sure they know who I am. But I know who you are with your real hair, too. You're the same person. Afro, cornrows, braids. And so I think it's the misconception of if my hair is straight, I'm more accepted, I'm more believable, credible, whatever the case may be. But that bothers me because I can arrive in any space. I tell people you can arrive in any space, whether it's straight, curly, natural, braids, extensions, whatever the case may be. You're still the same you. And it shouldn't change who you are or your credibility of who you are. And I think that going back to your point, Dr. Quinlan, about when your son made the compliment, your hair is straight and it looks very, I think it's, even for me 2 years ago, on my birthday 2 years ago, I straightened my hair for the first time in like 7 years. And I did notice how people reacted to me a little bit different. I didn't notice, I didn't say anything, But my eyebrow kind of went up because I don't straighten my hair off. I really don't. I don't get it pressed. I don't get it silk pressed or anything. And that might have been the first time in 6 or 7 years. I did that 2 years ago for my birthday. And I noticed certain little nuances, certain little people sitting up more, or but then I revert back. Nothing changed as much, but you can see, how people look at your hair a little bit differently. Oh, she's back to her 2-strand twist or her afro, because I wear my hair out sometimes, 2-strand twist, or how I have it today in a bun. I like to play around with it and do different things. But I think, to your point, Dr. Quinn, I think it's just the misconception. If my hair is straight, I'm perceived by, that whole beauty standard, a different beauty standard per se, or I'm taken more seriously, or it looks more presentable as what society thinks presentable should look like.
So when you say they reacted differently, did they take you more seriously? Were they more interested? Is that what you meant with the reaction?
Yep. More, she's more put together, because I think the misconception is if your hair is, wild and free, or however you may wear it, bantu knots, cornrows, whatever, braids, it's more of, which is, I think, is a good thing. You tap into your own culture and who you are, and it's your hair, wear it how you want. But I think with straight hair, I think the misconception always is, oh, that's more beautiful. It's straight. It's more manageable. Like Dr. Lavender said earlier, like we were saying, how we've been told it's been unmanageable, but it's something that can be controlled now because it flows and it's silky, and it's what society wants to see, or the perception of how hair should look.
Dr. Smith, you said something that I immediately had an experience with a supervisor at work where I straightened my hair, and it was my first time wearing my hair straight at that job. So she had never seen it. It had only been the curls. And she said, I really like your hair that way. It looks so much more professional. And I could have put my head in water in the sink. I was like, absolutely not. And I had that same strong reaction, more professional. I have been here a year, and I was looking unprofessional to you this whole time. That's also, I look like my mom. I look exactly like my mom with straight hair. And so it's something that I only do it every blue moon, because I'm like, ooh, turning into her. And so it's not at all for me one of the things where I have to do it to fit in. I think about more growing up. I would wear straighter hair when there was a wedding I was in, or I grew up in church. And if there's a church program, we got to go get our hair done. And they would try their best to straighten it. But humidity and curls, my hair did not enjoy that at all. So I was definitely the one that would leave the beauty shop looking very cute, walk outside in Florida, and give me 15 minutes and it's a nice fro. But it's the space of preparing. I have to put my hair in a certain way to be accepted or seen. And it's a socialized thing from being a child. Like I said, working on, if you have picture day at school, right? What is this prep going into my hair that doesn't happen every day? And why is it that my pictures I'm captured in this moment with this version of my hair that doesn't exist actually in this moment of my life? And I think about even the rollers. I, again, just had the unruly, big, humidity loving hair. So I would try to get a little roller and have a bang, and that little curl was so tight. What are we doing? But also that's other ways that my mom knew how to do hair. You roll your hair when something fancy is coming up. You gotta look like this way, and I'm like, that didn't work for me. So it's in this also shifting of your identities, and this is not working. This is not what I'm choosing. And then as a child saying, I'm never doing the rollers. I'm done with the rollers. Whenever I get to choose, I'm not doing that. And then exploring, like Dr. Smith is saying, exploring with twists and buns. And I taught myself how to braid my hair because I was a grad student with no money, and I couldn't pay $200 and something for braids. So we get on YouTube and we learn.
Yeah. Still can't do that, Dr. Likely.
Me neither.
I could not afford it. So it's in this doing and learning. I don't know who taught my mom how to do the ponytails in certain configurations. How did you figure that out? I don't know. Your mom taught you? Maybe. But it's now what looks well in my head, and how did I learn that? And it's through it not going well. It's going out with the little curl in the front. It's your twist out, did not twist. And what am I going to do? And still accepting I'm still beautiful. I'm still smart. I'm intelligent. I get to show up in this space regardless of if my curls are cooperating in the way I want them to today or not. So it's a whole lot of accepting who you are, knowing that these curls on your head are, I said in the last conversation with Dr. Quinlan, they're in response to the environment. So if it's humid that day, your hair is going to look different than it did right when you did your twist out. If it's raining that day, if it's a sunny, dry day, and being totally okay with this living, moving, breathing, wild curl thing that exists and loving it regardless. Yeah.
I think why we straighten our hair, as Dr. Smith and Dr. Likely has mentioned, some of it's a part of conditioning, how you grew up. And if you think about time, where you spend your time, you get the impression that this is important. So if your parent took the time in straightening your hair, even if it was with a hot comb while you were younger, which was the case with me, with a hot comb, you grew up thinking this is important, and during those times when your hair was, the events that you went to, my mom was not going to take the time to straighten my hair just to go to school every day. She took the time to straighten my hair on Christmas, Easter. Sometimes if I asked for my birthday, an important event, maybe someone's wedding. So as you said, Dr. Likely, it's in those events you would get captured in time as if that's what you look like all the time. And it was not. It was just for that particular moment. So I think one part of why we straighten our hair is a conditioning of how we grew up. Now, the other question may be, why then did our parents do that? And I think part of that may be the society or culture saying, this is the right thing to do. Now, and as an adult right now, I still think that exists, as you said, Dr. Smith, how others accept us or perceive us. For example, I worked in an office and there was our executive director. It was a Black woman. We were an office primarily, I would say about 90% of us that ran programs there, we were Black. My coworker, she often wore her hair in an afro, it's a gorgeous afro, right? Well, there was a day where we were going to have a meeting with other administrators across the campus. And our executive director informed my coworker, now next week is not the day to bring your afro. This is a Black woman to another Black woman. So it's not just how, even though my coworker was very comfortable with her hair, there she had someone who was a Black woman criticizing her because of the space that we all were going to be walking into the following week. Another aspect of why I think as adults we straighten our hair is sometimes even ourselves, we may say, I do not want to take the time weekly with my hair. And so therefore, I don't mind going to a salon and having chemicals added to it to make it easier for me to run a brush through or comb. Or for some individuals, it's a case of, I don't want to always take Tylenol to comb my hair. And some may say, then you're using the wrong products if you got to take Tylenol prior to combing your hair. So I think in terms of straightening our hair, it's complex, but I think there are several reasons. And some of those reasons may come down to an adult woman saying, it's a matter of time. That may be it.
Well, it's funny, even before you gave that anecdote with the Black woman, I was thinking to myself, I wonder the extent to which someone's perception about our hair is really an indication of their own self-concept, right? And how comfortable they, in other words, whether or not you're Black, or from white, another culture, the fact that, this Black hair, curly hair, is important, and the extent to which is important makes me wonder whether or not for people, how, that's an important part of their identity. In other words, the fact that you have straight hair defines who you are, right? Relative to the fact that someone else doesn't. And it's something to think about, because I always believe whatever the fact that something is so important and affects us, means it's important, whether positive or negative. And I think it behooves us, and it's important for us to figure out how that is. But I wanted to point to something else that I think it was Dr. Smith that talked about, the idea of manageable hair, right? That's also what made me think, it's part of our self-concept. As, one of the things I've learned in this journey is even my perceptions changed. The products I use changed as I learned more about my hair. It's no longer the idea of something being manageable. I didn't view it with that negative lens. I learned that, for example, people using things like shampoos strips my hair compared to, let's just say, my husband. He has, straight hair, and he needs to use a shampoo because when he wakes up in the morning, his hair is oily. When I wake up in the morning, mine is dry. And so he jokes sometimes. He's like, hey, maybe we have to figure out a way to take the oil from my hair and put it in your hair, right? Because we both need something else. And so one of the things I started doing, for example, which makes pure sense, I started washing my hair with conditioner. Which, if you think about the chemistry, right? We teach this. We teach about polarity. Polar like dissolves like. Polar and, non-like dissolves non-like. And for the words, for people who might not be familiar with the chemistry and the polarity and how the polar bonds causes things to get rid of dirt, think about oil and water, right? Polar, non-polar, they don't mix. And for me, it makes a lot of sense. We're stripping our hair with these products and other people, and the stripping makes it unmanageable. Now that I've changed the way and learned about myself and took the time to learn about my hair, that's not even, it's in the vocabulary. That's not even something, our vocabulary changes because you're not going to think of your hair that way. It's not something that, you want to control. It's something you learn you learn to love. You love your hair. You figure out this is why people define it as not manageable. You're using all the wrong things, right? You're trying to comb it when it's, while it's dry and with products that are drying it out, as opposed to learning when is a good time to comb out your hair, or how is the best time to comb out your hair. We're trying to be something we're not, or we've become it, and it's just given us such a negative self-concept. So I say that to say, I want to, what have you learned about your hair and your products and yourself, as during this journey, what have you learned about yourself and about your hair, and how how you treated your hair change, products? Go for it.
I think that what I've learned is that product does count, that it truly does. I've been one that's had sensitive skin, and because I've had sensitive skin, I've always invested the money in a dermatologist. No matter where I go, where I've moved to, I've lived in 5 different states. The one thing I find is a dermatologist for my skin. And I transfer that same work eventually into finding what's best for my hair, the same way that I would find what is the best thing for your skin. And what I've learned is that it can be expensive. That's what I've learned. And I've not learned what product can as an adult and my husband and I no longer graduate students, and we started thinking, hey, we can spend a little bit money on some things. We can buy Kerrygold butter. So the one thing that it makes me think about is, how do you help the young girl, or how do you help the parent, the single mom, the single dad, or of someone who's financially wanting to do a bit better by their hair in saying, hey, what products are manageable? They don't have the resources to try this $17 conditioner this week and a different $19 conditioner 2 weeks later. So that then builds with someone concept of, my hair is unmanageable. Well, it could be that you've not come across the right product. Perhaps you've not come across the right product because maybe you don't have the resources to commit. Your guardian, mom, dad, uncle, aunt, grandma, maybe they don't have the resources to help with what can we use to where your view of your hair changes, your perception of your hair changes, and to build that confidence such that when you walk into a space, even as a 9-year-old girl, we're building that confidence. The girls in my camp, the one thing I noticed one year was that every single girl had their hair braided during the summer. Some had their hair braided with additional hair and extensions added into it. Some, did not. But this impacts girls' confidence. I have a friend. She lives in Mobile, Alabama. Her daughter is very fair-skinned. My friend, she's very fair-skinned. They're from New Orleans. And her daughter has this level of anxiety each time she changes her hairstyle because she thinks, what is my teacher going, what will she have to say this time? And sometimes it's just simply a compliment. Oh, you changed your hair, or your hair is slicked back now. Your hair looks nice. And I don't think this teacher is aware, but each time she's saying something to this girl who's in 8th grade, she's bringing attention to, are you really noticing my hair that much?
Well,
I think, yes, that is very interesting, very telling. And I will say that comment about going back, Dr. Lavender, you said about, that word manageable, unmanageable, right? I think the journey, we've tested so many products, right? Over the years, things have changed for years. And so I think for me, I'm a 4C girl, always been 4C. And so I look at it, people always look at it as, dry, thick, coarse, and you have to come to the acceptance of that. I think going back to your point, that Lavender, accepting your hair for what it is and using the right products, finding the right products. There's so much out there on the market. And to your point, like you said, Lavender, finding what works best for you and your texture. I think going back to that word unmanageable, because, that was always something I was little, because it would take a lot to comb. And I've broken a lot of combs when I was little, and flat iron with the grease on my neck and yep, stay still. And so I've been through all of it. And so I remember, grow older and understanding that this is your texture, accept your texture for what it is. Because society looks at, if your hair is being it's more, it's easy to manage. It's more flexible, but you have to be comfortable, Dr. Lavender, like you said, with where your hair journey is and what it is as it grows. And it's going to change. I know for me, certain parts of my hair is wavy, certain parts is coarse, because, it's just so much things we've done over the years. And so it'll change as I get older. So you don't know where you're going to be at certain points in this journey of hair. And then going back to your point, Dr. Lavender, about the young lady that's in 8th grade, you were saying about the hair in the comments. Some people sometimes don't, to your point, like the teacher, she may not understand what she's saying and how it is affecting But that's such a critical age for young girls, especially in society now with, their access to social media, what they see on different platforms or what their hair should look like. And, to that young lady's point, it may be anxiety of somebody giving me a compliment or making a comment because it's bringing attention that I wasn't aware is bringing attention. Wear my hair how I want to wear it. And thank you for the compliment. But it's kind of also bringing other questions in my head. And we know as educators that middle school, high school period is very transformational for young children. And just understanding who I am, my purpose, where I'm going. And so that is all a part of that journey. I think people don't realize that we have to understand as we continue to grow and love who we are and love our hair for what it is.
Add to what both of y'all were saying about like the journey. I was full of comparisons. Like I got the loose curl, right? And people like, I wish I had your texture of hair. And I'm looking at a Dr. Smith like, I want yours. Do you see how you can hold a twist out? My twist out just flops around. And it's like, I also wanted this tightness, this kink, this coil, like blacker. Like I wanted that. And then everybody's like, oh, I want your hair. And it's this choice of when it happens, especially still now, younger girls. Oh, I love your hair. I love your curls. And it's intentional for me to say it back. I love your curls. I love your hair. Yes, it's different, but do you see what your hair can do? Do you see what my hair can do? And it becomes a different conversation when it's, I'm excited about you the same way you're excited about me. And I don't want it to be a jealousy thing because I still had to figure out what works and you're still going to have to figure out what works and find your styles that fit your face and things that are easy to do for you. I think the manageability conversation doesn't always include the process of spending money, of having hairstyles that looks terrible, but now I got to go outside. And it's this overall like journey of yourself. Like, what are you okay with, right? Like sometimes I just don't like the twist out. Let me grab a wrap. Let me grab a scarf. And we're going with the scarf today. And being completely okay with that. So my background is in biology and lab bench work. And I realized that a part of the journey and learning all of the terms and pieces of skin and about different organs and organ systems, I never learned about hair. I've never learned about curly hair. I never learned about my own hair. And so when Dr. Quinlan was talking about people with straight hair waking up with all heavy hair and curly hair doesn't have that same effect, it's more dry. It's because literally the structure of the hair. So straight hair, you get the oil from the scalp to the end of the hair really simply. With curly hair, you have that same oil at the scalp that has to go like this. And so it doesn't make it. And so now we add oil to the bottom so that we get the same layer of moisture at the top and the bottom. But nobody tells you to appreciate that. Like I had to go learn that on my own. Dr. Lavender was talking about a dermatologist. Like in what ways is even the field of dermatology, cosmetology they don't highlight the ways that curls are different. We understand you have an oil gland at the base with your hair follicle, but in the function of that oil gland, it doesn't get to the end of my hair. So I need to find some oils to complement my strand and moisturize my hair all the way. It's not bad. It's not worse. It's different. As growing up, I wanted to be the kid. The white girls wash their hair every day. Come to class, hair just wet. Like, I want to wash my hair every day. It fell out. It started breaking off because my hair was never intended to be washed every day because the oil at the scalp doesn't travel to the end at the same pace. So learning to just appreciate the differences became a lot of the journey. And the exciting part was I got to science it. Like I wanted to figure out how it worked. I think everything can be a science question. So as much work as I put in the lab doing digestion and testing, I turned it in like my hair into that same like investigation and inquiry. And I'm like, how can I figure out how this works? How can I figure out what's going on at the skin level, at the cell level? And then how do I support it with products? And so the journey has been a full-on, lifelong experiment, but also it's been exciting because I get to learn different things. I get to try different things and some of them work, some of them don't. but my hair has become my own like research bench work, like in science.
Wow.
Add something
Go ahead.
really quickly, Dr. Likely, that you said that I want to emphasize too. I find myself also affirming my students and people that I interact, colleagues, or anybody in general when I see us in a natural space here, because I think that's very important to affirm and say, oh, I like your hair. Or if somebody says it back to you, you say it to them. Or if they say it to you and you make sure you say it back. I find myself doing that more too. I like that you said that. I catch myself doing it a lot, especially for our college students in our classes and our spaces that look like us.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you can tell if they're feeling self-conscious about arriving in a space. They may think it's something wrong, but I'm like, no, it's not. It looks good. You're fine. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. You look exactly how you're supposed to look. And even to colleagues in general, past and present, just giving that affirmation, because sometimes people can feel, they may not show it, but you want to make them feel empowered. Because that can mean a lot going in, sitting at tables, having conversations, whether on campus, off campus, in different boardrooms, whatever the case may be, and, arriving as your true self and affirming. So if they don't do it, at least I have helped to do it. And I think that's important. I love that you said that. I wanted just to add to that. I find myself doing it often too.
Well,
And one something, Dr. Likely, washing every day in terms of dermatologists. I had one dermatologist in prescribing a foam for me to put at the very edges of my scalp. And the dermatologist, well, when you wash daily, you need to wash your hair daily. And I can't remember her name, but I said, ma'am, I do not wash my hair daily. I said, so you will have to think of something else to help me, because what I'm not going to do is wash my hair daily. We don't do that. I can't do that. And she thought it. She thought about it, and she came back to the room with something else, a different solution.
well, wow. It's amazing. It's amazing how products that are created for us define those narratives, define our narratives. I'm thinking, well, the comb wasn't created for us either, was it? Right? It wasn't a strong enough comb. It wasn't a good enough comb for our hair. But we've reversed it by saying our hair is just not good enough for the comb, right? Versus the comb is just not good enough for us. And I think oftentimes, one of the reasons we're talking about this too is, we need to tell people how to think about this, right? We need to help them to know how to think about this, and not assume that they understand how to think about this, because these are conversations like you've had, Dr. Lavender, that we have to educate people about, the considerations and where their blind spots are. And even, Dr. Smith, you mentioned, the 4C and things like that. I didn't realize that we had those resources, right? That we can educate students about their hair. I didn't, but I do want to ask you, I want to transition to one thing, but I do want to come back to that. You had mentioned to me the Crown Act, which I, again, was oblivious to it. I knew the things that had happened, but if you can tell us more about that, and we'll talk about the why and just what you know about it, because,
Yeah, sure. So the Crown Act is something that has been going on for the last 4 or 5 years, where this movement of trying to make sure there's anti-discrimination of people's hairstyle in various places, work, school, whatever space they're in. And so Crown stands for Create a Respectful and Open World of Natural Hair. So the acronym is Crown, but that's the breakdown. And more locally here in the Raleigh-Durham area, school districts have taken on their own policy of anti-hair discrimination for students, faculty, staff members in the spaces in which they work in school districts, and policies that are a part of the equity offices that they have. In purposes, given the climate that we're in, hopefully those things don't change. However, it's been going on for the past 4 or 5 years that the school boards here in the local area have established their own policies for students and faculty and staff to affirm and make sure they're not discriminated against because their hair is in dreads, bantu knots, braids, whatever the case may be. It's sad we have to have those things in place, but we know the realities of the situation. Students are looked upon differently because their hair is braided or they have dreads or, treated differently or judged or anyone, in the case may be. So that's why they have those things here. And the local school boards here have put policies in place and voted upon, and they successfully passed about 4 or 5 years ago. It's been enacted about 4 or 5 years ago to make take a stance of diversity, equity, inclusion with that, to make sure no one feels left out or not treated differently because of this Crown Act policy that we have, to make sure that we're treated fairly, equally, and also equitably as well, not looked upon differently because of that. I will say here, this week, I think this is perfect timing for this conversation, because here in Durham Public Schools this week, they have a Crown Act week. And so every day for Durham Public Schools, they're doing something different. I don't know what today is, but I know like earlier this week, it was celebrate your hair color. So whatever color you want to have in your hair. One day this week is take a picture of your hair in its natural state or whatever the case may be. And this is for all students and staff faculty. I think it's going to run from Monday until Friday, until tomorrow. So every day is something different. I follow them on Twitter, so that's how I keep up with. And they have a poster. It's a beautiful poster. But every day they're doing something to highlight. They call it the Crown Act Week, and it's a part of their equity affairs for Durham Public Schools. Wait a minute, I have the flyer here. Also, wait a minute, I found it. So, for example, today is actually natural hair and crown apparel, and then tomorrow is called Locks of Power. So every day is something different to advocate and to show that representation. I will say Durham Public Schools here is heavily, I would say, so let me preface this really quickly. I did a lot of my work in Wake County Public Schools, which is in Raleigh, right? But I will say Durham Public Schools is heavily populated with students of color, faculty and staff students of color. And so I think it's so pivotal that students can see their teachers, their principals, because it's a very heavily populated county of people of color in leadership here. To see that somebody in leadership looks like me, have dreads, have braids, have locks, they have their hair red or blue, and they're still leading or whatever the case may be, and I can be elevated as well, and I'm not discriminated against. So I think that's a good job of what they're doing at Equity Affairs Office to elevate that and to really emphasize that we're not going to discriminate against what, however your hair is braided or treat you differently, or suspension rates, whatever the case may be. On the flip side of this, I'm not sure if you all have been keeping up with this story. I think it's still ongoing, but the young man in Texas who has not been allowed to return to school, I think that was last in the fall, because he has locks, because they won't let him go to school because of his locks. If you get a chance, look it up. But he's been out of school for months now. And it's been something that's been going on with the district, because the district is saying he's not following the hair policy, which I think is outrageous. So he's not going to school. He's not getting an education. His parents are fighting the school board left and right. Up until this point, I haven't heard any more about it. But I know the last thing I heard back in November, October, he's been out of school for months because they won't let him come to school because he's wearing his hair in locks, which I think is outrageous in 24, 25, where we are in the diversity of our hair. So that's why we have to have these policies in place to let people know we can arrive in spaces. Our children can arrive in spaces no matter what they look like, and they can still thrive and grow.
Well, I wonder to what extent the economy, affects and drives all of this, right? I just picture executives, in a place where they produce, let's say, relaxers or products of Black hair, saying, wow, if we can keep them discontent for as long as possible, then maybe they'll keep buying our products, right? And perhaps even those who might pivot, and I was really surprised when I bought one product. I thought, maybe I'm not going to use harsh things. This was for kids. This is marketed for kids instead of for children. And then I looked at it and I tried it out, and it works well. It worked well when I used it years ago. And then I looked at the back. And I realized, oh, this is why this is working well. There's sodium hydroxide, right? There was lye in there as a taming curling product, which obviously the last time I checked a while back. I think they must have pulled the product because they must have realized you're putting lye to have people leave it, which would break your hair up even more tremendously. So I always have to ask, well, where did it start and how did it start? Even the fact that we need policy, right? I mean, look, I'm sure there's different sides of the debate where someone is thinking, well, the kid can just cut his hair and just go to school, right? But that's not the point. The point is, one of the patterns we've observed is the need to have that say and to control, to continue to control. I think this is one of the remnants of the need and the want to control the identity of Black people,
Mhm.
Ever.
But I wanted to ask, so knowing all of this, I'll ask this now. Knowing all of this, what is it do we need to know and educate, our students about that will help them develop in healthy ways? Because this development and the way we've developed and interact with here, it's been unhealthy, right? It's been unhealthy. It's not been about helping us to learn ourselves and to, and even sometimes our reaction is unhealthy, right? Because then we're placed in a position where we feel the need to assert that it's okay to stand out, right? And sometimes people don't realize that sometimes even, identity is formed that way, right? Because of positive and negative ways. So what do we need our students to know? What should our students learn, in a school setting that would be affirm their identity, as well as teach them about subject areas?
Dr. Quinlan, you're mentioning students and what's that?
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I did.
Students that I currently interact with are college sophomores, freshmen, and juniors. Okay. I'm at a predominantly white institution. So the students that I speak with the most are predominantly white students. And in fact, in my early childhood class right now, there are no Black students there. That does not stop me from talking about things related to equity and diversity as it relates to gender, race, sexuality, because I do and bring in books and topics and articles to inform these pre-service teachers and even tell them, you get to be whatever teacher you want to be when you leave this university. But what you will not say is that you did not have a professor here widening your view of how to educate, younger children. So when you say our students, let's talk about which students you're referring to. So that's one avenue for your pre-service teachers. But then when you go to students that are still in the K through 12 system, take, for example, any summertime interactions that I may have. Yes, we can do workshops, and it sounds as if Dr. Likely has some fabulous workshops regarding helping students with understanding, appreciating, loving their hair. But I would argue that's not those aren't the populations to truly, there's another population. It's families. It's our community and in the home. And I say that because as a 4th through 8th grade student when I was growing up, it was all about, hey, I was the youngest one. My brother, my sister, my mom, my dad did not live with us. We saw him every day. My parents were separated. They had great roles in transporting us around the city. Don't get me wrong. But there in my household, I was the crusader for, let's try and recycle, Mom. Let's try and save the planet. Let's try and do that. I kind of stood alone in this knowledge that I had as a 5th grader trying to impact my household. It would have been great if there were some other outside entity, that could help me in helping my family. And I was simply talking about trying to save the planet and recycle. So if we're only talking to the K through 12 child about their hair, we're sending them sometimes into spaces to where they may need a little more support, because they may go home trying to tell their mom, I've got 4C hair. And their mom or their aunt or their grandmother's response may be, it's just nappy.
I was going to say, I look at this twofold as well. I'm looking at it from the pre-service teacher perspective and also from the early childhood, infant, toddler, and pre-K perspective. It starts early. I teach in one of my courses for early childhood, I teach about diversity in the early childhood space and making sure as pre-service teachers, I'm equipping them with representation and what that looks like in an early childhood childcare program, pre-K program, kindergarten, because that's where we stop. We do birth through K, that's it. But I tell them all the time, it starts there. And going to Dr. Lavender's point, we have to give them exposure to different books, the posters that we put on the wall, the things that we present in class to our littles that they teach. So I try to make sure I empower our pre-service teachers to make sure, yes, you teach them how to read and write, but you also have to make sure representation is there too. Who are they seeing on the screens? Who are they seeing in the books that you read or the books they have on the shelf? How are you integrating various diverse cultures as well, so they can see somebody with braids, see somebody with an afro in the text or whatever the case may be, so they can know when I come to Miss Smith's class, I see somebody that looks like me every day with cornrows, locks, dreads, whatever the case may be. And so I make sure, and we have to look at that from both perspectives. Even when I go out to do observations of student teachers, having those conversations with student teachers, giving feedback about that diversity and how we have those interactions and how we make sure we are fostering that empowerment for young children is very important. I talk about that in my courses that I teach as well. And I also always tie in literacy because I'm an early literacy researcher. I love early literacy, talk about all day, but making sure that it just goes back to, it's so many different, it's different from when we were growing up. There's so many resources and books can tell a lot for young children, especially in the early childhood space. That book, any book about hair or any book about loving my hair or seeing myself, that early exposure in that infant pre-K space can go a long way with that foundation of, I saw it. So when they get to 4th grade, 8th grade, 12th grade, they've had some exposure at a foundational age and they feel empowered in the child care center. They feel empowered in pre-K, kindergarten, and it starts there. And so you never know what that trajectory can look like as they get older, with having that conversation and also finding purpose in themselves and also embracing themselves in their hair and who they are.
I appreciate you both because you have your backgrounds in the front. Like, that's how you lead. You're both talking about as a teacher educator, as a pre-service teacher educator, and even Dr. Lavender saying which students, right? So we have college students, we have the K-12 students. My background came out of science, like bench work. So I start with lovely model. Like, that's what's my approach, and how do I include it? That's where I was. And so I'd like to hide, let's put it that way, hide the excitement, the appreciation, the representation around hair in science learning. So I approach it with, everybody has hair and skin. Let's talk about different kinds of hair. Let's talk about how skin works. And then as a now pre-service teacher educator, it's like, oh, okay, this is how you would present it to your students. Here are different activities that you can do. But because my like first career was in like lab work, that's my approach to it. So I still enjoy marrying those two things and putting the content first. Can't do anything without a standard. Okay, fine, sure, let's do it. But also every picture that students will see whenever they engage with my work will be of a young Black girl. It can be different hairstyles, different outfits, but it's how do I put them together where it's not always, Black girls, Black hair in the front, straight flagging. They love to highlight that, but It's skin. It's skin, learning about parts of the skin, how is hair connected to skin. Again, we all have skin and hair. Our hair is all over our body except for the palms of our hands, soles of our feet. And that does not make me different as a Black girl versus anybody else. So I like to say, let's talk about what we all have. And then now let's use examples of Black girls with curly hair. Let's talk about this. Let this be the main part of the conversation. Let the representation in the activity book, in the conversation, be of curls. It will be of braids. We're going to use that as our foundational point instead of talking about fish scales, instead of talking about bird feathers, instead of talking about, we know deeply about penguin blubber. I have curls. Let's talk about the curls. So I like to approach it with the actual content of skin and hair, and then expanding beautifully on DIY product making and conversations that we have within our families. How are we being scientists in the same way, engaging in science practices, just doing our hair?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned books, because I've started noticing that even the books, we featured, Black people, right? Maybe we're doing better with the color, but a lot of times the hair looks straight, right? And people are using avatars where, it's just making sure you show that, seems to make sure you show that there's no curls in there, right? So I just keep wondering, is that by design, or is that just a level of, I don't want to say laziness, or is that a level of, again, just not being inclusive, right? But, you bring up an interesting point with the community. And I'm wondering, even with what we talk about, how would this be beneficial to people who are not Black hearing it, especially people with straight hair, right? But what might our communities, and even, whether it's families, communities, and other people, how might they benefit from this conversation? And what do they need to know? Like, what do we need to educate them about, or what do they need to educate themselves about?
For starters, they need to know, don't try and touch my hair. That's for starters.
First,
Let's see. That's one something. I say that because I went to a neighborhood gathering once, and an older neighbor came in, and I felt this kind of, and my husband was across in the kitchen, and he said he could see my body like kind of tense, and he thought, oh my gosh, Heather, don't hit that old white lady. Like, that's what he was thinking, because like, oh my gosh, he saw it happening, and he just thought, it was like, oh, what's about to happen? Why is your hand reaching for Heather? Don't do that. And I had this conflict tension between, this is an older woman, an elder person. I'm not ever rude or disrespectful to an elder person, right? But at the same time, I'm thinking, gives you permission to reach out and touch my hair, And when this happened, because I knew this person, I kind of gently whispered to her, and I said, might not know this, but I don't like my hair to be touched. I, she gave the impression that she was mortified, like I had done something wrong. To me, yes, you have, but I still wanted to be respectful in saying that. So when you ask, what are some things that individuals with straight hair, regardless of their ethnicity or their race, what are some things someone with straight hair, should know? I think perhaps just leave people alone. Everybody has hair. Everybody has skin. You don't always need your hair looks good today, as if it didn't look good the other days. Mm-hmm. I seem to think sometimes, I think what others need to know is shut up. Just be quiet. If you want to know more, though, be more educated, now, it becomes a case of helping people do the work of understanding, how the care, and the chemistry behind different hair, and maybe perhaps even the cultural lineage as to how and why some individuals may have straight hair or 4C hair. I knew one person who was very fair skinned growing up in Louisiana, and kids bothered her because she was very fair skinned and had 4C hair, and they thought, how can that happen? Genetics, lineage, heritage. Yeah.
I think to add to that, I think also too they should understand that our hair comes in all different shapes and sizes and what that looks like, and embrace it. Learn to embrace it, continue to embrace it, because it's not going to change. And also learn to, just because I wear my hair one way one day, I'm the same person that, the next time you see me, because sometimes there's a misconception of, oh, that was you. I didn't realize it's the same person. I just got my hair twisted. That's all, or I just got braids, or it's straight. It's always this misconception of, oh, I didn't recognize you. It's the same person. It's me. Hey, how you doing? I've experienced that too from some people not in our communities who don't understand. And it's me. Hey, I just changed my hair. That's it. Nothing's different. And I think sometimes that is funny to me and a little bit interesting. But just learn to embrace and understand that we come in different shapes and sizes with our hair. It's going to look different, but I'm the same person. I want to switch it up. I'm the same person, and just love it for what it is.
I'm thinking about what people should know is recognizing what they don't know, recognizing the intentionality of commercials, marketing. I'm thinking of is it Garnier or the hair, and they're in the shower and they always do the hair and it's the flip of the hair. And I'm like, my hair doesn't flip. Well, you run your fingers through your hair. My fingers stop. And it's like recognizing why is this the messaging? Why is this in the front? Why is it that my hair is not celebrated? Like knowing what you don't know, like recognizing this was intentional, that Dr. Lavender's dermatologist did not know Black women don't wash their hair every day. Why? Why is that not a part of this training that I'm sure this doctor has received over however long? Like, why is it left out of cosmetology school? Why is it not centered within, science learning broadly? Like, to find information for Black hair is so hard. To find a scientific textbook around just Black hair, that's what I was looking for my dissertation work. It was so hard. Why? To know what we don't know, to know that it was intentional, to recognize systems and structures that exist to leave us out on purpose, leave us as in Black people on purpose, to recognize that they saw that we were not worthy of consideration. We're not worthy of highlighting in pictures, using Black women for medical tools and tests. So we could be tested on, but not used for highlighting and celebrating. It's not good, but you do know there's some value here. We want to use this in some way. So it's knowing what you don't know, knowing that, things were intentionally left out, intentionally not brought to the front. And now I make it my job to move us to the front. How can I say, oh, look, we all have hair. My hair does this. What does your hair do? Versus my hair is better and yours is not. Or I'm just not going to talk about your hair, showing you that yours is not good. So knowing that you get to make a choice, make a shift, you get to put what was not in the front. You get to celebrate and affirm what some people call nappy and unmanageable. And now I get to rename it and relabel it as something worthy of scientific inquiry, something worthy of the front of the textbook, the front of literature materials. And we get to do that work in real time.
Well, I do have to say, whenever I hear that word, I cringe.
But people still use that word.
What's that?
I said, but people still use.
I know.
It's what, nappy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I do have another question, but I know that Dr. Smith, you needed to leave So it's interesting you all said that because, when you mention, oh, don't touch my hair, right? The first thing I think, well, so why not, right? Why shouldn't people touch our hair? And the reason I ask that is because sometimes I think as people, we come at a certain level of assumption um, about what people's predispositions are. Especially, when you mentioned the old white woman, I'm thinking, well, also generational, right? And when you think about it, if we imagine, people's, well, great, 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 however many great grandparents, being slave owners at a time in a way where you had you didn't respect Black people, right? We don't really get to see certain attitudes and ways of thinking are passed down, right? And so, I have to ask this question. So why do people want to touch your hair? How about that? Maybe that will help. Why do people want to touch your hair?
Well,
Why do you think people want to touch your hair? Why do you think?
Before I get to that, when you say "Don't touch my hair," I always think about Solange's song "Don't Touch My Hair." It always comes to my head because she beautifully kind of explains what that means. Like, it's a crown that is mine; it belongs to me. I have to invite you into my space if I want to invite you to my space. And so every time that word, that phrase, "Don't touch my hair," because I always think about that song, which is still one of my favorites. But I think it all goes to that. And she kind of alludes to that in the song a little bit about, it's who I am. It's my space. If I want to invite you to my space, great. If I don't, I have the right to do that as well. But not touching it, because who says that you can? Who says that you have the right? It's all about my personal space and who I am, and making sure I protect who I am, and not you taking upon yourself to want to come into my space if I allow you to, if that makes sense. And I think that all goes in with that. If I'm walking up to you and we're having a conversation, you shouldn't just reach out and grab. No, we're not going to do that. I'm okay with you doing that because some people are. Everybody's preference is different. Then we have that conversation. But I think it's people understanding that this is my protective layer of who I am. Think about it, to your point, Dr. Quinlan, from the generations of years, hair has played a significant part in the identity of who we are over thousands of years. That is the one thing that we have as Black women that we really protect and make sure that we, fortify what our hair is, and whatever straight, curly, whatever state it may be in, that is our baby. Like, our hair, we take our hair very seriously. So, making sure that, we have that crown of protection, as I call it, my crown of protection, because that's who I am. If I want you to invade my crown of protection, great. If not, you have to be okay with that and understand it's not just running your hands through it to say, oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, you can say that from afar, that's fine, but not running your hands through it. It's that safety net of protection.
So, Dr. Smith, I want to I'm going to be devil's advocate for a moment, okay? Because I really want to dig deeper here. And the reason I say that is because, well, okay, so you're a Black woman. Just imagine a space. You're a Black woman. You have a space at home where these conversations are happening, or you're this way. So why should we, right? And you have to understand that there's a cognitive dissonance when it comes to respecting us. There's a cognitive dissonance which kind of pushes me to have to go deeper, because for some people, it's not enough to say, I should respect you. It's not enough that respecting you is enough, right? So that's why, that's why I'm digging a little deep. I want to hear as well. So why shouldn't we, knowing that predisposition, right, that people come with, which is why I have a part of a chapter and book titled Getting to Know Yourself and Understand Others, right, in one of the sections. Why shouldn't we touch your hair? Why shouldn't people touch our hair as Black women?
I think, oh, go ahead, Dr. Likely. I was thinking, just broadly, your hair is still an extension of your skin, and your skin is your whole body. And recognizing respect, agency, choice, and historically, Black women did not always get that respect, agency, and choice. So it's, I can do to you whatever I want to do, because in the past, I have.
Mm.
My people have.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to say no. You don't get to have a option here, a voice here. I can do whatever I want. And when you were talking about the Solange song, Dr. Smith, I was thinking too about who I do share my hair with. And the ways that, because I got to work in a lot of after school spaces, little Black girls, all in, whenever. Like, I have braids, you want to braid the braids, braid them.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never, and I've had that response to Dr. Lavender when people come up, hands out, like, whoa, 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 what's happening? That never has happened with young girls broadly, because this is who I'm choosing to allow to touch. They also ask, can I touch your hair? It's never been at all just hands thrown at you or coming towards you. It's the respect. You see me as a whole human, as someone with agency, choice, voice, opinions, desires. Some days I just don't want to be touched. It's okay, move. And I get to say no. But the younger, like, students or children will say, can I? And it's this, wow, thank you for appreciating me, respecting me enough to see I'm a human. I don't always want this, and you don't have control to do that. You don't have power to do that. Whereas you can go from older generations, and that's what they see. I've always had power and could do this. And in the past, a Black woman telling me no, that's a problem. Like, call the people. And now this shift of even watching children engage with each other. Can I? Should I? This consent and how it is enabled across generations. I think that that's something that's really tangible and speaks to, like you said, why can or cannot you touch my hair or any parts of my body, my person?
I think it's a fascination. I think it's a curiosity. And being curious, asking questions is a good thing. I encourage pre-service teachers, I encourage elementary age kids, ask questions and question answers. And so I recall when I was a kid, I could not make the connection of the cotton balls that we had to take fingernail polish off or do different things, and clouds. I thought clouds had to feel like cotton balls. And mind you, there was also that movie where there was a woman who sat on a cloud. So a younger me literally thought they must feel like cotton balls, completely dismissing the fact that you could see planes that would go through. So how could they be like cotton balls? There was this curiosity that I had. And because that was what I had in terms of cotton balls, the one thing that I wanted to do growing up in Louisiana, each time we went to my grandmother's house, there were these four corners of cotton fields. I wanted so badly to touch cotton as it was coming from the plant, because I thought that as it's coming from the plant, it must feel like this cotton ball, because that's what it looked like from the car that I was in. I even recall having a conversation with my dad saying, can we just touch that cotton? And my dad thought, we don't do that anymore. I never got to touch that cotton ball coming from the actual plant. So there was this curiosity that I had about, what does that feel like? I have in my mind of what I think it should feel like, but gosh, if I could just satisfy the notion in my mind with, I think that's part of this curiosity, because there are some individuals that they may say, I've only ever had straight hair, or maybe there are some individuals, I've only ever had 4C hair. I don't know what it's like, what Dr. Likely's hair may be like. Or if I'm a white person, I have no idea of what someone with 4C hair, what that may feel like. Even as a kid, when I was in elementary school, there was a little girl. She and I were friends. Her name was Kelly White. And believe it or not, Kelly White was actually white. And I got teased a little bit because my name was Heather. Growing up born in 1976 and being a young Black girl named Heather wasn't exactly wasn't a compliment. I got teased because one of my friends was Kelly White and my name was Heather and Kelly was white. Kelly wanted to touch my hair and guess what? I wanted to touch Kelly's hair too. I think it's a curiosity thing. That's why I think people want to. It could be that they've grown up never been able to.
So, Dr. Smith, since I know you're about to head out, any last minute words you want to leave with before we continue?
This has been wonderful. So glad to meet you all and have this conversation. I hope this conversation continues and grow from this because this is a very insightful, very important conversation that we need to continue to have. And it's good to see that we're having this conversation as it relates to our backgrounds and the work that we currently do and have previously done. There's something to build upon, in my opinion, of what that could look like for future conversations or works. And thank you, Dr. Quinlan, for this invite. I wish I could stay a little bit longer, of course, because with classes. But thank you so much. This has been wonderful, and I can't wait to hear the rest of this conversation. Thank you all.
Awesome.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you.
Nice.
So I want to say that, you both hit it on a nail in terms of where I was going with, but really understanding, why. And in other words, what would it take for someone to stop touching her hair? We're talking about controlling, right? Controlling ourselves and having boundaries for ourselves. Oftentimes, that's one of the other theme and topics that has come up for me over and over again. That's everything that binds us together. One of them is boundaries for ourselves, boundaries for who we respect and how we respect. I mean, could you imagine what if we felt that way, right? We're so curious. We want to touch straight hair, right? We know not to go there, right? We know to have those boundaries, and for the very obvious reason, what would happen to us if we did? But I wanted to just to give you all a chance to, what are some questions you want to ask? We want to ask each other, and give you a chance to ask questions. Maybe I didn't ask it. What are some questions that you all have for each other? For me and.
I just have a question. Dr. Lavender, how did you do your hair? Is it a twist out? Is it a rod set? What you got going on?
This is not my hair.
It looks good. It looks great.
This is crochet.
Really? I got to get in the crochet. Okay.
Yes. Not only that, but it's time for me to redo it.
Good.
And what's worse is that I have a conference I'm going to on Tuesday, and I was like, so I'm going to, do my hair this weekend. I fell on the ice yesterday morning, and my shoulder hurts. And I thought, my gosh.
Yeah.
You can't do your hair. You're new to Syracuse. I am still trying to find people, I've met someone, and I said, hey, pass along someone that can braid my hair. So I am a new assistant professor. I don't know how long you've been an assistant professor, Dr. Likely.
5 years this year.
5 years this year. Okay. So
And
I moved to Syracuse in August. I feel as if I am perpetually running out of time. And something that I tell my friend in Mobile, I said, right now, Brandy, I said, wearing my hair like this, I feel as if it gives me time. I said, from the night that I tie my hair up to the morning where I wake up and I give it just a little fluff and check some of the ends, that is 5 minutes. And I told her, I said, I recall, at some point in time where I was wearing my hair more natural. It was as I was taking graduate classes. I felt as if I had a bit more time, each day or every 3 days to where I would retwist it and pull it out a little bit more. I felt as if I had that time. But now I feel like I don't have this time. And in part of it is this new, being here in this new space, but also the past 2 years, while I lived in Athens, Georgia, I was completing a postdoc at the University of Georgia. That was what felt like busy time to me. And so I've come to this style and I like it. And I've even told some people, I say, you guys may never see my natural hair again. During the summers, when we go to the beach, I always get my hair braided in cornrows. And sometimes I will add some color to it, and I have 2 boys. So my boys all come back with my hair braided and they'll all say, oh, Mom, your hair looks, they'll say, no, they don't say nice, tight. It says your hair looks tight. It's tight. It's tight. And I'll ask them if they like the color that I added to it, because I may, at the very back, I may put like some level, like a pink, or I think I've even added like a silver. And I told them, I said, this summer, I said, the little section in the back, I said, I think I may get some multicolors and add to it. And I call it my beach wear. I said, it's time for us to go to the beach. So I'll get my hair braided during the summer, but also adding to that are the times that I've been with my girls during the summer camp. I was like, their hair is braided, my hair is braided, and I've always got my hair braided at some point in time during the year. So it's for me, this fall has been quite a lot, because it's not only me managing a new job. I come to this junction, as I put in the chat, having been in microbiology for years. I have lesser time as an educator than my time as being a microbiologist. And so I've taught as a substitute teacher for 2 years, but that's different than being in the classroom day by day. I love that I was a substitute teacher because I got to see a lot. I got to see the inequity in a lot of schools from one side of the city to the next side of the city. And some, I don't think I would have seen that if I had just been in one school. So, I do like that, but I'm still learning a lot as an educator. But here, I not only have that new job, one other new job to me is that I'm a parent. I've been a parent for 18 years. I have an 18 and a 14-year-old, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that speaks to the level of complexity and like hair choices, right? I don't know if like getting a perm or manageability is always like this deep anti-Blackness within. Could also just be time. This is what works. Because imagine, Dr. Lavender, if you had 2 girls and it's your hair, 2 daughters' hair by yourself right now. And it's like, I need something that works for everybody. And these are choices that we get to make, but also I don't know if it will be deeply, closer to whiteness. In this moment, we all have to get out of this store before 7:12 every day. So what do we need to do that? And I appreciate also a Black woman thing. Like, this isn't mine. We love to just tell people, listen, I love it. I love it. It's my
because had you been someone else, I would just say, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just thank you.
Every time I'm in the hair store, somebody walks up to me, where'd you get your wig? I'm like, oh, it's mine. Sorry. Did you get your wig here? This isn't a wig.
Right. Yeah, right. And there are times, I think, when I was living in Athens, there's this one store that I would go to, and the parking was horrible. I mean, just horrible. And I told my husband, I said, I'm going to stop going to that place. I said, I'm going to stop giving them my money, and they're tearing my car up. I said, they are taking advantage of our culture. They're taking advantage of us. I said, we're coming in here every day, like buying their product, and I'm just like, and then I said, I'm just going to start ordering. I'm going to go and order my hair online. So there was one time I went into the store and I asked the guy, I said, hey, when are you guys going to fix your parking lot? I'm like, each time I've come here, I see so many people shopping, and you've been at this this station for, all the time that I've lived here. So you're surely turning a profit here. Why won't you fix your parking lot for us? And the guy, he just looks at me. He says, do you know someone that could help me with that? And I said, no, I don't know anyone that does that type of thing. I was like, but surely you would want to do the work to fix your parking lot
For your customers.
And there was a part of me that wanted to, if I had the time, I wanted to like pass out flyers or spend some time like stalking this store and the community of saying, let's boycott this store until they fix their parking lot for us. Like the parking lot is literally that bad.
You deserve better, but you don't see me as a worthy.
It's the disrespect of, as you talked about, Dr. Crandall, is like they know that we're going to come and buy some of these products. Further down the street, there was a shop that opened up, and it was Black owned. And I thought I heard about it on the radio. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go there. And so I made a point to go there, and the owner was there. And I asked her, I said, do you carry this particular brand and pearl pattern of hair? And she says, oh, I don't. She says, but I am working on getting that. And she explained to me, and I loved this conversation with this woman because she explained to me the complications that she's having in trying to break in to get a range of product to sell. And I thought, man, and at that time I said, well, you know what? Maybe I can change to what you do sell such that I can better support you, with the inventory that you have available, So there's some other parts of hair that, that we're not talking about. And I think there's a lot of research here, Catherine, regarding our hair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I am curious.
So, how we view it, there's so much to it. I mean, and there's so much to it when, when Dr. Smith mentioned the Crown Act, I thought, oh my gosh, yeah, the grant, my very first grant, I talked about the Crown Act in that, and I told a story about an interaction I had with a young girl and hair that was so profound. I tell it to this day because, and I've told my husband, I said, the next proposal I write for a grant, I said, it is going to be in the elements of hair, and I kind of thought that I put the seed of that there with my last, my first grant ever, because there's so much here now. Where
Do that? No, I'm kidding.
where we target that now in our political landscape, where such a proposal can
be held well and funded and celebrated and supported. Yeah.
I've just got to do a little bit more work to look for it. It doesn't mean the work changes. It's just that
the funding source might.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what are some challenges that she said she was having specifically with getting the products?
Mm-hmm. Because the challenges that the market was cornered. She was saying that suppliers from other countries, China, Thailand, Indonesia, she said throughout the United States, from state to state, city within states, there's this back connectivity that other ethnicities have. They know one another from, we don't know this, but she said from state to state. She says with interconnected with end state. So this in that connection blocks anyone not in their connection with a girth of inventory.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And, it's interesting you said that because that's also why I've been exploring entrepreneurship. I've intentionally exploring it to understand those nuances, right? We do have a lot of blocks, intentional blocks to us succeeding. And imagine, right, you imagine having that block for products that are important to you and yourself and your person, like hair products. It's amazing how economics, it's a drive and then people talk about merit. What a joke. The idea of, I don't know. But it's interesting you said that because I wanted to go back at something you said that for me, in your question, time has been a factor in me choosing how I choose to manage my hair as well. I've always thought it, which is why, I didn't do a lot with my hair and mostly wore it natural, to sit down in a salon for an hour while somebody blow dry it up. I always felt like I want that hour back, give me that hour back, and it's interesting you mentioned about your hair that, even I've the opposite. I haven't worn anyone's hair, but because of the moments when I would, put stuff in my hair, people thought I was actually wearing hair because, when the outgrowth starts, this part is curly and then the rest is not.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, why do I need to learn to just, appreciate what I have, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, any other questions, last minute questions or last minute things you want to say before we can wrap up?
Yeah, and I was like, because I've got to get to campus for 12 o'clock. Dr. Likely, what is your background in science?
I have a master's undergrad and master's in biology. Physiology was my master's focus, adjusted physiology, so the way we eat things and how they get in our bloodstream.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved into education, so my PhD is STEM education.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
So like you said, more experience in the lab than in the classroom. Right now, they're breaking even. Oh yeah, I will hit the point. Like finally, they're breaking even. And then you ask how long I've been an assistant professor. It's I'm starting my 5th year, and I just got my president's letter that I'm promoted with tenure. So yes, it does happen, and I totally get that first semester of it being, what is going on? Yeah, you're doing it right. You're doing it right. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, no, it's chaotic.
Yeah, just yesterday I had a review and recommendations meeting with 2 senior faculty members before I officially meet with my dean mid-March, and I was talking about all the things, and they're asking, how's your semester going and all. And I was like, well, I think my teaching, I'm feeling more comfortable with my teaching, so I can see how in the years to come that I will become more comfortable with teaching. I'm really glad that within my contract this first year, my teaching load is a 2.1 and a 2.1. The normal teaching load is a 2.2 here. But I was telling the one person that, right now being in a new space, I never want to move again because right now I'm just finding medical doctors finding medical doctors, health professionals, not just for me, but for my 14-year-old as well. And getting him situated at school and making sure he knows how to catch the bus. And also it's like, you just want to, I know this time next year, I'll be looking back at that first year thinking like, man, how did you get through that first year? And so it's good to know that I see some other scholars that are like, hey, I'm in my 5th year, just got my letter. I'll get there.
And I started fall 2020. So I call it in the dark. And gratefully the last week, I met a student. She said, I had you for methods. I was like, you were one of those? I'm so sorry. And by one of those, we were in person and online. So it was this flip-flop of who's in front of me, fully in mask, some folks on Zoom. And I was like, you were that, like the first semester. And she's like, oh no, you did great. We understood. And I still went into teaching. It's like, oh, it happened. So it's this space of, like you said, you're going to look back on it and say, what in the world? And then you get to see your students again and they'll be like, oh, I remember this one thing this one time. And I'm like, wow, that's what you picked up? That was never the focus. Or they'll remember a hairstyle. And that's always funny to me because I'm like, I never center the hair in the thing, but that's what they remember. That's what they see. So you got this. You'll be fine.
Well, my last question, Catherine, one, I want to say thank you so much for including me on this. I want to know, where's your journey at right now? What's going on?
Oh, mine?
Yes.
My journey? Which one? The hair one or just in general? So, I thought you knew. Okay, so I am the new Brenda B. Brody Endowed Chair at North Carolina Central University. Oh, I thought you knew. Okay.
I just knew that you weren't out. No, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where I am now. Yeah, it's definitely an important part of my journey to really bring a lot of the work I've done and a lot of work people have done and the important topics that I think should define the work we do, especially when it comes to what people need to know. But yeah, thanks for your question. But what is just a one, just what is one point or takeaway or advice you want someone just to wrap this up, to get from this talk?
I think, and I like that it just happened. So I think that one takeaway from this, it's community. It's how that I'm like, oh, let me give Dr. Lavender a compliment on her hair. And it took us to a different conversation. I want people to build community, find your people, be okay with asking questions, be okay with giving the random compliment, be okay. Like, I want folks to let the hair be the connector. It's okay if that's how it happens, because you don't know what's going to come later from the hair being the connection. Like, I know for me, I was in a 5th grade classroom. The few Black girls that were in that classroom were doing each other's hair, and the teacher told them they were off task. They were supposed to be working on a worksheet. And I was a student, a PhD student, working on a research project. That's why I was in the classroom. And she had taken the hair off of a braid. She had two big ponytails. One had the, like weave attachment braid, and the other one, the other student was doing. The teacher got onto them while the hair was disconnected. So she has her hair, one full braid, her hair, and the other student's holding like the weave. And the teacher said, stop doing that. I need you to do your work. The one who was getting her hair done, tears. But I look a mess. I can't, full on, melt. And I chose in that moment to kind of block where the teacher was, stand up and say, okay, let's get this worksheet done so we can finish our hair, because I get it. We're not going to go out like this. It's okay. But also, what does that mean to have a teacher defend you or protect you or see you? And it was from the hair. So I think that we can build lovely communities, lovely relationships, and let hair be our connector.
Wow.
I don't have a better take home than that right there.
Awesome. Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you, everyone who's been on this show. I know it's been an amazing talk. And I think one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation is because it's become a distractor. It's become a distractor, not necessarily because, I'll never say it's because the children, the example you gave with the child. I think that what you point to is we can be part of the solutions, right? Or we can become part of the problems, especially when it comes to hair and identity. When I think about that young woman, or even with anyone, we can use this to bond us, or we can use it to shame others, right? Or we can use it to put others down. And I think it's important for people to think and to remember that, how you react and how you respond speaks to your own predispositions. And I also want the audience to know, for those who are thinking, I remember one of the reasons I want to have this, I remember someone made a comment that she wanted to go natural, but she was afraid. And that's why also I thought, wow, there's so much fear in wanting to be yourself. it takes a while. I would even encourage people to see a therapist, even as you go through that hair journey of defining your own self-concept. And just recognize that this talent comes from being in a society with flawed perceptions, with extremely flawed and unhealthy perceptions that contribute to our own unhealthy perceptions. So if you like this episode, please like it. And if you like the show, please follow so that you can be notified on the next show.